The Supreme Court has rejected challenges to assault weapon bans in Connecticut and New York, letting those states keep those bans in place. The laws were passed in response to the Sandy Hook shooting in December of 2012, where 20 children and 6 teachers were killed.
CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford, along with senior fellow at the Cato Institute, Ilya Shapiro, are outside the Supreme Court. Thanks for joining us. There's a lot going on with the Supreme Court as things are wrapping up there. What's the latest, Jan?
Well, I think the news today out of the court is what the justices didn't do. There are really about 5 major decisions left that we're waiting on, and they touch on extremely controversial issues like affirmative action, abortion, political corruption, immigration. Well, the court didn't decide those cases today. Instead, they got kind of rid of some of the less significant cases. But then they also announced that they would not hear a challenge to the assault weapons ban in Connecticut and one in place in New York. So those bans will stay in place. The court not taking up those cases, and that's really not a surprise. The justices declined to take up a similar challenge back in December related to a ban out of Highland Park, Illinois. So I guess kind of the big news now is that we're waiting to see, Ilya, when we'll be back.
And there's 8 cases left. I think they're trying to not add too many decision days so we don't go too far into the summer.
So we can be sure that whether we're here on Thursday or Monday or next Tuesday, that the odds are getting higher that we're going to get one of those big cases.
And what do you expect from one of those big cases, Ilya? How do you think the court will decide?
Well, the conventional wisdom is that the immigration case will break down 4-4. It's a question about why they're holding it so long if it's tied like that, because they don't write an opinion in that case. The lower court is simply affirmed. In the abortion case, probably Kennedy goes with the liberals, maybe writing his own thing. Maybe that's a 5-3. And in affirmative action, there's only 7 justices because Kagan is recused. And that's probably a win for the challengers against the use of racial preferences. But Kennedy, who knows how broadly he will write that opinion.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is that sometimes these cases, and particularly involving questions of race, on abortion rights, those all turn on Justice Kennedy, and I would expect that trend to continue this term. The interesting thing is, though, with the court 1 justice short because of the death of Justice Scalia, bless you, Ilya, in February, is that these cases, the significant cases, could, as Ilya said, well be deadlocked, which means the lower court ruling would stand in those cases, but they would have no nationwide precedent. So the justices would need to come back and resolve those issues in the next year or 2. So this term really, I think, with Justice Scalia's passing has kind of just taken a notch down in terms of the significance and scope. Certainly nothing like what we saw last term with the landmark decision on same-sex marriage.
Sorry.
Just to go back to the assault ban situation that you had talked about, that the court is allowing Connecticut and New York to maintain their ban on assault rifles. Can you give us a little bit more about what the court said, why they came to this conclusion, and have they done anything in recent years in regards to gun control? Have they shifted anything in any way?
Well, I'll just say real quickly, the court didn't say anything. This was just an order. It was a 1-line order. Certiorari denied, which means that they are not going to review those lower court decisions.
This is not a case that was argued before the court, and they decided not. They simply, there was a petition, they denied it, and as Jan said, since the original Second Amendment case came down in 2008, striking down D.C.'s gun ban, they haven't taken any Second Amendment cases fleshing out that right. So this is no surprise.
Right. So what the court has said is that back in 2008, we know there is a Second Amendment to bear arms, a Second Amendment right that's an individual right, that you have a constitutional right to have a gun. That case related to a handgun in your home for self-defense. But since then, the court has not really kind of filled in what does that really mean. What bans will be upheld? Like, can you ban assault weapons, for example?
Or the right to carry outside the home, whether concealed or open.
So
guys,
we're
still waiting.
So guys, the challengers also lost in the lower courts. Now the Supreme Court's not going to hear this case. They had argued in the lower courts that this ban violated the Second Amendment. Does that mean it's dead in the water?
Yeah, for those particular laws in Connecticut and New York, yes. And indeed, for other related gun laws, we saw a ruling out of the 9th Circuit in California a few weeks ago, leaving in place the effective ban on carrying. So your Second Amendment rights definitely differ depending on where in the country you live.
But those bans will remain in place in Connecticut and New York as a result of the court's inaction, its decision not to review those lower court rulings today.
You mentioned that there are a few significant cases that are still sort of hanging out there that have to do with affirmative action, abortion, immigration. I'm wondering, with the passing of Justice Antonin Scalia, will any of those cases be impacted, do you think?
Oh, I think all of them will. I mean, all of them, because you know, with one justice short now, the court is really divided 4-4 conservative, liberal justices. As Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who of course is a liberal, said the other day, you know, 8 justices is not a good number, which means if they're tied in these cases, the lower court decision will simply remain in place, and there's no nationwide precedent. There's no Supreme Court opinion. But as Ilya was saying, you know, some of these decisions could come down 5-3. But without Justice Scalia, I think you can't.
I think the tenor of the opinions would be different. And even if in abortion, in the abortion case, Scalia would have been in dissent and Kennedy would have been joining the liberals, still the tenor might have changed. I think the immigration case also, since the lower court had stopped the Obama executive action, a 4-4 would keep that stop in place. And on affirmative action, if it was going to be a 5-3 with Scalia, now it becomes a 4-3. So again, these aren't necessarily the biggest impacted cases. We saw the contraceptive mandate cases a month ago, some of the other ones, the labor rights case earlier in the term. So there are a handful, but we shouldn't exaggerate. The opinions might be different, but the results aren't always affected by that one vote.
All right, CBS.
And we're just getting word, by the way, that we will be back here on Thursday. So we'll have some of the answers. Maybe we'll find out in some of those cases how the justices are going to resolve those issues. But again, I mean, these are like the most contentious, controversial issues. They always save these to the end. They always divide the justices. They take the longest to write. But we'll be back here on Thursday for more opinions.
All right, CBS News legal correspondent Jan Crawford, along with senior fellow at the Cato Institute, Ilya Shapiro. Thanks a lot. And of course, the Senate will be voting today on 4 gun control measures, 2 brought forward by the Republicans, 2 brought forward by the Democrats, and none are expected to pass.
That's right.